All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on our another series of Paul and Greg. Today we have Paul Brooks joining us. Paul, well, you may have seen Paul's intro to the company about a week and a half ago. Paul, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
So a little bit about Paul, and then I'll pass the reins over to you there, Greg or Paul. Paul, you've been in real estate for a long time. How long is this?
31 years.
And you've started a brokerage, you've sold a brokerage, you've worked for a franchise, and you actually were a franchise operator.
Right.
Okay, so you've done a lot of things in the real estate world. So we're gonna pick your brain today and see what we can learn.
Okay.
Greg, what's the first question you have for Paul?
To add too that if I'm correct here, if I'm incorrect, and if I embellish too much, please feel free to correct me. But
okay.
I want all of you to think about this number, that if you started out today and said in your career you're going to sell over 2,000 properties, what that would mean for yourself and your family. And Paul is one of those rare individuals that meets that criteria of having sold over 2,000 properties. And so, you know, when I think about that, what does that mean? It's like, Paul knows something, right? Well, this guy must know something, because you don't sell that many houses and not know something.
So Paul, you've also, if I'm not mistaken, you've also done your own developments where you've built and sold and developed.
Yes.
Okay, so you have like an absolute enormous amount of information and knowledge. So take us all the way back. What was the company you started?
Well, it actually started in 1990. I was 24. I started with Boss Craft Builders in Holland, and they were just starting to build some new communities in the north side of Holland. And that's kind of what got me interested in the development business. I like the part of seeing a piece of ground, trying to figure out what to do with it, how to maximize the profit, what to build on it, who the buyers are going to be if we build it. And that kind of got me interested. When I started, it was interesting. Some of you guys know Ted Bosscraft. He's the father of the business, and he hired me. And he says, I said, well, what should I do? His first thing to me was, he says, find a buyer or a seller. That's it. He said, you don't need to know anything else. He goes, well, you find a buyer and a seller somehow, some way. And back in the day, he threw me a phone book and said, here you go. And it was that's how I started, that cold. From there, I did a lot of open houses through the developments, what got me a lot of leads. And then back to the same old thing. Nothing has changed in 31 years about prospecting, follow up. I was there for about a year and a half, and then went to a company called Woodland Realty. They were the largest company in Holland. We had 38% market share, which back then for an independent company was huge. We had probably 40 agents at the time. And to give you an idea, ReMax had maybe 10, and Coldwell Banker back in the day had probably 5. So there weren't really any other franchisees that were any players. We were the biggest one in town. Shortly after that, they invited me to be an owner partner, and kind of was honored by that. There was 4 other partners. They invited me in as a 5th, and then started from there. I really was more a partner as a board of director than actually a manager, anything like that. If people know Jack Bauman, he was the man that kind of ran it, but we were his go-to partners. So I was involved in that and learning. And then I was probably 24, now I'm 26, 27, getting my feet wet, and then started to really ramp up my sales from there. From that point, I really focused on sales at the time. So probably 5 years into my ownership, I was selling, and then reached out to some developers about marketing their communities, and it kind of grew from there. And as I got to be known for the new home sales guy, which I focused on, at one time, I think I had 7 communities that myself and another team member were running. And that really got me into the new home sales and condos, which then got me into saying, if these guys can do this stuff, so can I. And so then I did some small developments, and then was building about 20 spec homes a year with a couple partners that I had financially. And then we hired a construction manager that just ran it. So we would find the lots, we would pick the plans, and we would sell the homes. During that time, as that started to go, I said to Jack Bauman, I said, why weren't we in other areas? We're only in Saugatuck and Holland. And I said, why aren't we in Grand Haven or Spring Lake, or go north along the lake shore? And he says, Paul, if you are interested in doing that, I will support you, and let's do it. So our model was that we'd go into a community, Grand Haven, let's say, and we got to find 3 good, solid producers. And if we can find 3 people that are willing to join our company, we would start an office. And so that's what we did. And so we went to Grand Haven and did that. We went to Whitehall, Muskegon, and Mears, Hart, Shelby area. And that was kind of our lakeshore. From Saugatuck to Hart, Shelby was our market. And this kind of then got a little bit more into management with the outside offices, still selling with my team. We were doing on average between 150 to 175 sides a year in that day. And we were really cranking it. It was before the crash. It was really, really good. You know, with having an independent is a little different than a franchise. But around 2006, before the crash, the Schmidts wanted to buy us, Coldwell Banker Schmidt, a family of companies, because that section of land along the lakeshore we had, and they could not break in. So they courted us for quite a few years, and then finally we decided to sell to them. I would say that the other partners were a little older than I were, and I think they wanted more of an exit plan than I did. But at the time, I really didn't want to own the company or be the Jack Bauman of the company, because I was selling, you know. As being a manager, you don't really make that much as you can do selling. And so I said, I don't want to do it, so I'm selling too. So that's kind of how that evolved there. And then once the franchise came, which was hard to sell to a franchise because it's so different, because we're like, why are we going to pay 6-8% for these services when we really kind of had them already? And so that was hard for us to really sell. But it was a way for, again, I think the owners sold for them, not for themselves, but they wanted out and they wanted to get some money. And that was the way. You know what I'm saying? And so we transitioned the company over, and Coldwell Banker Woodland Schmidt is the name of the Lakeshore offices. A lot of people probably know that. And it's a franchisee company now, and it's got all the same stuff. And so I did that. I got out for a little bit of time during the crash and started a home improvement business. That was going great, but I kind of got the itch for real estate again. So they were calling me back to come back to Coldwell Banker, and they had a management position in Grand Haven. So I decided to join that. I came back, got involved in that, and recruited and trained, and felt, well, maybe I want to own again. So I called ReMax Lakeshore up. The lady recently had a divorce, and I thought, she's got this company all by herself. Maybe she needs help. So being the prospector, I just called her cold turkey. Kind of funny. It was Christmas Eve morning. I just said, I'm calling her because maybe she's home, sitting home before Christmas. And so she picked up and said, it's perfect timing. We need to talk. And so we actually put a deal together. And so it's kind of the same old thing. I thought that the ReMax model commission plan stuff was probably a little better than the Coldwell Banker Schmidt family of companies. That's my opinion. And so I joined her, and that was going good. And then as partnerships sometimes struggle, we struggle together of different philosophies and mindset and growth. And I thought, you know what, this is not working for me. I need to do something different. And so I said, would you be willing to buy my stock back? And she said, sir. And so we parted ways. And I said, I'm not jumping into anything. I'm going to take a sabbatical for some weeks. And I took 6 weeks off and kind of went around and talked to different brokers and agencies. And I called my good friend Doug Hale, because we were both at Coldwell Banker. I actually recruited him to come there to be the manager up in Muskegon. And I called him and said, let's do breakfast. And he sat down with me. He goes, Paul, we do not understand 5-star, I'll say green. That's what we talk about here on the lakeshore, because there's 5 black and red.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, you don't understand. And so we had a talk for probably 2 hours, and he goes, you need to talk to Greg Carlson. I said, well, let's do it. And so I think right there at the breakfast table, we called Greg, and Greg answered and said, well, if you can come right now, I'll meet you. And so kind of here I am. I mean, it's kind of a long story for 30 years of my life, but it just, as time has changed and moved on, the internet has changed our business so much, from the technology of dot loop and showing time and photos. I mean, we used to have one black and white photo of the home, and the information was held by the agents. And when that all went away and opened it up to everyone in the world, it changed things. And I really think the franchisee model that I am from an independent to ReMax to Coldwell, is broken. And I don't see it lasting a long time. And is it 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? I don't know. But I think the 5-star model for me, through my experience, has been, this is where I need to be, because this is the future. And it's amazing that Greg thought of this 26 years ago, but to me, it just hit me right in the face. And so
Paul, when you think about, the conversation you were having back at Coldwell, or maybe even ReMax, and then you look forward to where you're at today, it's like, what was the biggest thing that hit you when you came over? I mean, I know you said some of these things to me. I'm hoping that I'm leading you into it, of course, here, but it was just interesting for me to hear what they say about us, or how they view us.
the view, at least along the lakeshore, was, and I think it had a lot to do with 5-star lakeshore black and red, was you get a reduced commission, or you get a good commission plan for the agent, and you do your own thing and you get nothing. And that's why when Doug Hale called me and said, we don't understand the 5-star green, that's what he explained to me. And he showed me all the support and all the technology and all the training and all the resources we have at the other companies. And I think we've been brainwashed with the brands, that the brand does so much for us. And a lot of the stuff, and being an owner of ReMax and being a manager at Coldwell Banker, my job was to really try and get the agents to use all these services that we didn't use or didn't work. And it's back, like I said to you, we really didn't get sales from the company. We got them from our sphere, and sphere is what was pounded in my head. And yet I stuck around a long time in these brands, paying all this money that didn't really get anything. And in the outside world of 5-star green, people think that you get a good commission plan and you get nothing else. And it's not even close to the truth. That everything out there are lies of what people are saying. It's not lies. They don't know the truth.
Yeah, it's just a manager kind of making it up as this person goes.
That's right.
I've heard that some brokers will say that, hey, once you join, the fee structures change, the rates go up, they switch it, bait and switch over there, and I'm just kind of like, really?
You don't have anybody to call. There's nobody to talk to, and it's like, now that you're in and you look at this, and it's like, the thing that I have been promoting for a long time is that it is possible to provide all of this and do it for a lot less. And and of course it helps the larger you are, because you can scale that in a way that allows the company to be profitable, and still charge what appears to be a fairly minimum amount in the real estate world. And I'm thinking about people that make a couple $100,000 at these companies with the franchise fee. Well, the franchise fee alone is going to be anywhere from 10 to 15,000, depending on if it's 5, 6, 8%. And then there's other little charges. And then none of the agents ever ask those other brokers, well, what's your E&O plan? Oh, well, we have an E&O plan. Well, what does that mean? And it's like, we find that Agents don't ask these questions when they sign the contract. And they find out later on that they've got a $1,500 or a $5,000 deductible that they've got to pay. And 5-star covers it all. First dollar defense coverage on E&O.
Right. But you know what we see a lot of too is that there really isn't a ton of question asking going on when, especially when someone's new to the industry, they're not asking, they don't really even know what questions to ask.
That's right.
And so they're like, well, all brokerages are the same and they all have these splits. They got these things called caps. And I guess they're all kind of the same, right? They're all kind of competing. But we've sat with people who are 1 year, 2 year, 3 years in, and let's say they did, they earned $105,000 in their first or second year in real estate, but they brought in $200,000 of commission. So of that $200,000 in commission, they're keeping $105,000 of that. That means they had $95,000 of expenses before all of their other things they're spending money on, like professional photos, or maybe you want to buy a billboard or whatever you want to do, right? And I think that it's absolutely amazing when you think about that kind of money, because that money can do so much for you if put to work. What it can do for you in terms of marketing, or what it can do in terms of buying a rental property. We were talking to an agent in another market, and she had paid in a similar amount of money to her brokerage, and I said, how much is a rental property in this market? And she said, around $45,000. And I was like, well, you're pretty close to paying cash for 2 of those. Had you kept that money, and you could have built your family another rental income that could help you retire and build wealth over time. So when you see these people who are, and again, I'm not going to knock franchises, because there's some people who find a lot of value in those, but when you're spending $100,000 a year over 10 years, it's $1 million. A lot of times that is your retirement plan that you just handed off to the broker. So
Paul Brooks, let me take this in just a little bit different direction here in this back half of this conversation. You've been around, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot, and yet you're in the big picture, you're still a young guy, and you are, and so I think, as you look at this right now and you kind of size up this market, what is it why are some agents making it and some are not? How do you, when you put those two things together? And the reason I'm asking this is because I want the agents to know they can seek you out in the coming days and sit with you and have a cup of coffee, talk about, anything from working with builders, developers, to selling, to investing, to whatever it might be. What do you see when you look out there at the real estate? I mean, you've been in Coldwell Banker and large independent, and then you've been at ReMax, and here you are now. And how do you look at this? What is it about agents that drives you nuts, or gives you the hives, or what are you seeing right now?
I'll tell you the thing that drives me agents the nuts, because I say this now, when I meet someone new who's coming into the business, I'll say, you need to listen to the coaches and the people that are successful and do what they say, and don't try and change it up. Because I will say, for instance, I need to get business. Okay, so this is what I say you need to do. You need to mail to your sphere or connect with them every month. Well, I'll just do it six times a month. I mean, 6 times a year is good. I'll do it every other. You need to do 3 open houses a weekend when you start new, at least 3 times a month, 3 open houses. Well, I can't get open houses. No one comes. Everyone who comes through is working with a buyer. Baloney. That is baloney. I do open houses, okay? There are a lot of buyers that come through that are working with agents. I get it. But all you need is one. And so it's those types of things that an agent will try and tweak it so it's comfortable for them. You have to get out of your comfort zone. And one of the things that I think you have to do in the business is do everything. There's not one silver bullet in the business. You need to join the chamber. You need to go to chamber meetings. You need to go to events. You need to volunteer. You need to prospect. You need to follow up. You need to have a website. You need to send out emails. You need to Facebook. I mean, go through all the things that we have. And the ones that are really successful do all those things all the time. And during COVID was interesting, where the people who I saw who were working, when COVID kind of started to relax, they killed it. And the people that kind of took COVID off had to almost start over new. And so I think it's the little things that make the big difference. And I remember I saw this someplace where they said Tiger Woods, okay, back when Tiger Woods was the best golfer in the world. He said, you know what Tiger Woods does? He makes little teeny adjustments on his grip and he drives better. He looks a little different with his eyes and his feet when he goes to putt. But he's the best player in the world because he doesn't kill people in golf. He beats them by 1 or 2 strokes, right? Yeah. And so I think of the little things that make a big difference in this business. And I think a lot of agents want the lower hanging fruits.
Yep. Yeah, very
true. And it's like, okay, so I'm going to buy Zillow. And I'm not saying I'm against Zillow, but the phone's calling in. Or someone will say to me that their marketing plan is, we don't have it here, thank goodness, is I'm going to sit on floor time as much as I can. Well, the phone dials out too. You need to call people and reach out. Right. That is the basics. I've said this before to many people. Floyd Wickman back in the day gave you a phone book and said, start calling today at 8 o'clock in the morning, not at 9, not at 10, because we don't want to wake people up and they're probably taking the kids to school. All these excuses. Pick up the phone and dial until you get a bona fide appointment where you're meeting face to face, belly to belly, what he would say, a live one. And that was the assignment.
So one of the things that I've observed over the years has been, I've seen thousands of agents come and go over my 44 years. And it's still similar today as it was back in 1978, in that the people that were the biggest successes weren't any smarter or more intelligent than I mean, I look at some of these people and I making 20, 30,000 a year and I'm going, they're smarter than that person making $200,000 or $400,000. And you're sitting there and you're going, how does this work? And then you realize that some people are extremely likable. Others are prickly pears. And if you've got the prickly pear personality, it's going to be tougher in this business than the person who just kind of moves along and doesn't get their feathers ruffled and doesn't need to make a point or doesn't need to win every little tiny battle. We talk about, do you want to die on that hill? And we see agents who get into a situation where they've worked 3 to 6 months and they end up near the very end and there's a $200 issue. And I have continuously promoted this idea that agents need to have their checkbook with them at all times. And I would gladly write that $200 check, even if it wasn't my fault. The seller took something, the buyer did something to make my clients happy.
It's almost like you should be looking for that moment. Like you should intentionally go, all right, I'm going to burn $200, $400 every transaction
and then
to wow that person.
And then you've got the agent who is right in that they didn't do it. They did not cause this. This is a perception, but in this business, perception rules. And over reality in many circumstances. And so I sit here and I go, I want to take every agent and say, look, you need to get visible. I don't care how you do it. You can do, if you want to do it on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or use that stuff. Somebody else might decide to join 5 organizations and get on the boards and be involved and serve. And I look at some people and I'm going, this person is not brilliant, but they're likable, they're involved, they're serving in other ways. And because of that, the business just comes to them.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about that is the business doesn't just come to them, because they could be likable and sit in their house all day and not do any work. So I think what Paul said and what you said is that they're putting themselves in, as I'm going to give Leo Olson a slap on the back here. He used to say, you got to play in traffic to get hit, right?
Yeah.
And I think we hear it belly to belly, face to face, a live one. However you want to visualize that, you have to create experiences where you're going to be with people, and you can get to know them. They can get to know you. They can learn to like you, and they can want to work with you. So I think that ultimately what it is, it's about not making excuses, as Paul put it, and it's about getting out there, because every single day there's something that you can do in this business to advance your business moving forward. And any day that you didn't move that, you used to say, Greg, if you go through a day without meeting somebody new or talking to someone that you didn't talk to ever before about real estate, or have any real estate conversations at all, it was a day you weren't in business.
Yes, and it was very uncomfortable for me to go home and look at my wife and have her say, how'd your day go? And I'd say, well, not only this day, this whole week, I don't think I met one new person that's going to buy or sell a home from me.
Mm-hmm.
Who has the money. We all meet these, every now and then we meet these dreamers who take us in, and they become our one client, and we focus on them, and they just eat our time alive, and it's going nowhere. And so when we don't have much, we're trying to hold on to everything. And this is that whole concept of, there's a plethora of people out there that are going to buy or sell homes. And your job is to find and discern who are the really motivated people, because there's a lot of people just trying or playing, and they're never going to do anything. And so many agents get caught up in this where they waste days and weeks and months only to find out this person was not a bona fide buyer.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of them. So one thing that Paul said that I really liked was, I also built my business early on, and I was doing in the 50 to 60 range per transaction sides per year. But I was doing, and this is when I was I was probably 27, but I was holding open houses on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then 2 to 3 or 4 on Sunday. And there were days where I'd be holding a house open in Forest Hills, and someone would roll through and they'd say, yeah, but I've got to sell a house. I was like, cool. What are you doing in 25 minutes? I wrap up my open house. Want me to meet you at your house? And we would literally drive to their home. And I mean, this is how it would work. And that morning I had no listings, but you go to an open house, you never know what's going to happen. So I'm a big believer in that.
So anyway, Paul, any final thoughts you'd like to leave? I know what I want to leave is that I want the agents to understand that they can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
And we are also going to be, Paul Carlson and myself are going to be taking a little break here and stepping back for a month or so. We've been doing these Wednesdays off and on here for quite a few months now. And you're probably getting bored with us a little bit. And so
we want to do some content planning. We want to start fresh, and we want to bring some good content. So we're going to take a little breather here. I don't know how long it's going to be though, Greg. We'll have to see. It probably won't be a full month, but we'll get some.
But we'd like to bring Paul Brooks forward.
Yep.
And have the sales guru, the mentor of sales, what you can do. So the bottom line is, Paul's available. You can reach out to him. He will be glad to meet with you, have a cup of coffee. He loves helping others.
Absolutely.
And so, Paul, any final words?
Nope.
Number one thing, I heard another thing is these little cliches that that stick with me, but one of them was when I hear people say, oh, that agent's lucky, or they're this lucky. And I saw this quote, and I don't know who it was from, but he says, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Right.
And I think that is true. And the other thing is that if you're not picking up the phone and calling a couple people you know and asking them how they're doing, how's their kids, whatever, and this market is tough. For me, experiencing it, this is the toughest market I've been in, other than the crash, which was a little different, but for just regular normal sales, it's not normal at all, but this is the toughest thing. And you're going to have to dig the diamonds in the rough for this market, especially if you're new. You have to call everyone you know and talk to them and just say, how you doing? Do you know anyone who's thinking about buying or selling? And you will, I guarantee, run across someone who says that, yeah, because someone tonight is thinking of calling their agent tomorrow and saying, we want to sell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think the prospecting and reaching out and touching with your sphere, if anyone sits down with me, I'm going to say sphere, 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 sphere. And you have to work. This is not easy. It is not for the light at heart. And so I guess that's my final thought.
Let me add one thing here, Paul. You know, in my years, what I have noticed is that people will say, yeah, but I tried that. I tried it didn't work. And so, you know, I sit there and I want to evaluate what they're saying to me. And it's like, okay, so you just put on the best performance ever and it didn't work. And when that happens, I used to think that if I bought into that, I now was going to become a victim. And I had no choice, because the victims have no choice, right? And I realized at a fairly young age that, well, then maybe what I have to do is reevaluate it. And maybe I have to change a word or two. Maybe I have to change a sentence. Maybe I have to keep trying in veering off left and right and adapting. And what I've noticed, and I've said this in multiple of these videos, and that is that the most successful agents never or seldom do they say that doesn't work. I think most of them will say everything will work once you figure out how to present, once you figure out how to deliver, you tweak it, you turn it upside down, but it will all work if the words come out right at the right time. And so it's up to us, you agents, to find those adaptations. But to say that it doesn't work is not really a fair analysis to yourself or others.
I think that's fair.
Can I say something on that? You know, I was an open house guy because I was kind of forced to through my developments, because the developers had models. We had to have them open. I lived at open houses all the time. And I hear so many people say, well, I do them and I don't get anything from them. Okay. And I was at Coldwell Banker. So what I did was I hired a friend of mine to shop my agents during the open house. And I had a sheet that I made up, and I wanted this gal to go through and do the same questions, the same thing every time she went through. And when I would preach this at our sales meetings and stuff, everyone said they did them great and loved them, and some people hated them and blah, 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 blah. And the results that came back from this shopping of the agents was I almost had a heart attack. It was so bad. And so what Greg's saying about what you say, how you say it and stuff like that is that if you're going to go to the open house and sit on your phone, and when people walk in, go, hi, come on in, and still keep talking, you're right. You're not going to get anything. And so it's how you do it, how you say, what you say, when you say it, the questions you keep asking is the difference. And so you can do 100 open houses. If you just sit there and say, hi, look around, and they walk out the door, you're going to get nothing.
Yeah, and to expect it to change is the definition of insanity, right?
Right. I mean, the number of people that were surveyed that were on the phone when people walked in and did not hang up during the whole time they walked through blew me away. And they would say to me, oh, I don't get on the phone. Okay. Well, it must have been the one time you just happened to shop that you're on the phone. And so I think there are ways that if you struggle with a part of the business, if it's your listing presentation or getting the buyer agency signed or open houses or whatever you're doing, there is a way that you can be successful. I totally 100% believe it.
Yeah.
All right.
You agree?
There's the challenge, guys. Give Paul a call.
Paul, what's your phone number?
616-836-0428.
Thank you.
Hang on one second. Hello, how you doing? This is Paul. Yeah, I can help.
Perfect. Well,
All
Paul,
right,
thanks
thank
so much
you.
for taking the time to talk to us today. And I'm looking forward to you talking to some of these agents and getting them motivated, man. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Talk to
All
you
right,
later.
everybody. We'll see
Bye-bye.
you later.